Clock. We'll go ahead and call this joint meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Powhatan County School Board to order. And let the record show that all the supervisors, except for Mr. Nordvig, are here.
If you let the record reflect, all members of the school board are present this evening, along with Dr. Jones.
Yes, and Brett Chardon is filling in for Ted Voorhees, who's out of town. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you like to read some invocation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please join me. Thank you for this day, for the leadership of our county. We ask that you will empower us to make wise decisions in the best interest of those residents of our county. We appreciate those in attendance today. We appreciate your safety and guiding hand upon the members of our first responder community, the men and women of law enforcement, public safety, and also those members of the armed services serving us across the world. In thy name we pray, amen.
Amen. Okay, so are there any requests to postpone agenda items for the Board of Supervisors agenda tonight?
Move it approved as presented.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any of the school board members have requests to modify the agenda for the school board?
Make a motion to approve as is.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of approving the draft agenda for the school board for the evening, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And let's let the record reflect that Mr. Nordvig has arrived.
Thank you.
And at this time, we'll go ahead and open our first public comment period. If anybody from the audience would like to come make a comment, please come down to the podium, name, address, and don't forget to sign in. Once, twice. All righty, we'll close that public comment period. Move on to old business, an update on the Jude's Ferry Route 60 Smart Skill Project.
Yep, good evening. We wanted to take this opportunity, since we had both bodies here, to update you on this project since it impacts schools. So give you just some background and a brief summary on it. Every 2 years, the state opens up a competitive round of applications for transportation projects, and you compete with others within the greater Richmond region. The county, we submitted 4 projects this year, and one of them, improvements at Jude's Ferry and Route 60, scored relatively well. So this one would propose to add an additional left turn lane on 60 where you're turning onto Jude's Ferry, and then add an additional through lane on Jude's Ferry between Batterson and Route 60. This would address the backups that you get in the morning from school and commuter traffic that actually back up into the travel lanes on 60, which isn't good for the students, the faculty, or the commuters coming through that road. VDOT's initial preliminary budget would propose to fund the top 14 projects in our region. This one scored number 15, just 0.2 points behind the next highest funded project, so extremely close. The Commonwealth Transportation Board are ultimately the ones that make the decision on what to fund, so they'll take VDOT's draft recommendation into consideration, but they'll also consider feedback from staff, localities, citizens. So we intend to advocate for this project to them and ask them to include it in funding. There's currently an open comment period, so we have a letter tonight that could be issued by the board, the school board jointly if you like, telling them that we would like to see this project included. I believe Mr. Williams and I will also be attending the public hearings that will happen in April to again advocate for this project. And one of the major reasons we think they should reconsider funding it is these projects are considered and scored on a number of factors: how much the improvements will improve economic development, the minimal impact on the environment, reducing congestion, all good factors, but it does not consider school-age children, the number of student drivers, the number of school buses, which make this certainly unique as far as I can tell from many of the other projects. So that's why there was some discretion built into this process, that the CTB can consider things outside of what VDOT was recommending, and in the past they have. That's kind of where we are currently on the project. So again, we're going to continue to push for it through the Smart Scale process. Hopefully we're successful there, but if not, there's also a regional funding program called RSTP. We've applied for it there, and right now things are looking good to potentially fund it through that as well. So we'll keep pushing down both avenues until we secure one for sure, but happy to answer any questions. And again, this letter could either come from the county administrator and superintendent, but we thought having both bodies here might present a unique opportunity to jointly endorse that letter if you like. And would also like to thank Mr. Tibbs and Dr. Jones for their help in putting this project together and giving us some of the good information on the impact of schools for this.
So one question real quick, are we doing the joint letter for the Commonwealth Transportation?
If that's the pleasure of both bodies, I do have a copy that both chairs could sign.
I would recommend that we do that in conjunction with what Brett said. We will go down there and make our presentation to the Commonwealth Transportation Board in April. What Brett was talking about, the RS Regional Surface Transportation Funds, they're the federal funds that we compete for down at the Richmond Regional Transportation Organization. Brett, you're on the Technical Advisory Committee for the scoring of projects.
Andrew is now.
Andrew is, I'm sorry. So at least we have representation in the discussion and consideration. So it's good to hear that you think we're going to do pretty good with the scoring down there for the RSTP funds.
Yeah, it looks good right now. It's in the draft funding, so we'll see how that proceeds.
Oh, that's super. That's good news.
Mr. Chardine, I don't believe that the school board has had a chance to see this letter, so would you, it's lengthy, but would you mind reading it for
Sure.
us?
Yeah.
Okay. And we took your copy.
No, I've got a few,
Pass
so
out.
actually, let's, let me keep one, but then we can pass the others to that way. Yeah, so, and, okay, so we're addressing this to Carlos Brown, who's our representative on the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and it reads, Dear Mr. Brown, on behalf of both the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors and School Board, we are writing to request your assistance in securing funding for Smart Scale Project ID 4001, Jude's Ferry Road and Route 60. Anderson Highway, US Route 60, is the major and only east-west travel corridor for Powhatan County and is traveled by over 31,000 vehicles per day. Route 60 connects the greater Richmond region with much of its workforce, who travel Route 60 every day from Powhatan, Cumberland, Buckingham, and beyond. In 2016, Powhatan County funded a transportation study jointly with VDOT titled US Route 60 Corridor East Special Area Plan to analyze this critical transportation corridor. The county has since implemented many of the recommendations in our latest comprehensive plan to ensure through proper long-term planning this corridor remains a viable gateway for the region. That study specifically recommended improvements to the intersection of Route 60 and Jude's Ferry Road. This intersection is the primary entrance to Powhatan's only high school, as well as one of 3 elementary schools. Every school day, approximately 250 student drivers, most vehicles containing multiple students, 160 parent drivers, 233 staff members, and 38 school buses mix with the average 31,000 average daily traffic, most during the peak morning commute. This results in backups extending beyond the auxiliary lanes, with vehicles stacking into the 55-mile-per-hour through lanes on Route 60. This not only creates delays for both students and regional commuters, but also presents a significant risk to the safety of our children and those entrusted to educate them. To address this issue, the Route 60 study recommended a second eastbound left turn lane on Route 60, a second northbound lane on Jude's Ferry Road for receiving dual lanes, an extension to the existing westbound right turn lane on 60, and modifications to the traffic signal to facilitate the above improvements. These recommendations form the basis of our Smart Scale request. The county vetted all possible projects through a significant public outreach program, including an open house forum, numerous public discussions, comment periods, and individual notice to affected property owners. This project stood out as receiving 100% support throughout all comment periods, letters, emails, and discussions, including comments such as, the second left turn lane on the Jude's Ferry Road from Route 60 eastbound is an outstanding proposal that will have long-term positive impact on the morning commute. Jude's Ferry and Route 60 is dangerous during the school end of day. Necessary, good idea. This has been a very important improvement for a long time. Would be a welcome benefit to the safety of community, especially our student drivers. Most critical and will be instrumental in providing safer roadways for a large number of motorists, and we need this. We appreciate the transparency that the Smart Scale program brings to the important transportation decisions and commend the CTV and VDOT for their work in making improvements to the process each round. VDOT's funding scenario for the Richmond District proposes to fund the top 14 projects within our region. This project ranked number 15, scoring just 0.2 points behind the next project proposed for funding. While the scoring matrix considers many important factors, it is not able to capture the unique impacts and vulnerability of 250 student drivers, 160 parent drop-offs, and 38 school buses. This is why the Commonwealth built in a degree of discretion to the CTB in the Smart Scale process to determine which projects should be funded. While Powhatan County fully supports the transportation improvements being proposed by other jurisdictions through the fiscal year 20 Smart Scale program, we believe that the significant student population and regional impact of this specific project make it an outlier among other worthy improvements and warrant special consideration for funding. If you have any questions, we can provide additional information or arrange a site visit. Please do not hesitate to contact me, as I and Powhatan County staff stand ready to assist.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So, Madam Chair, so Dr. Jones, can you talk to us about what your engagement was with this, since this is the first time the school board's really publicly discussed this issue?
The letter
Yes,
itself?
or this project in general?
The project, when the Smart Scale project was put together, the proposal was shared with Dr. Tibbs and myself. They asked for information such as the number of student drivers, staff members, buses that came through. So we provided that information to help support the project submission. We haven't had any involvement since that time.
Okay.
And then Mr. Chardine called me Thursday or Friday and asked if we could add this to the agenda because it was an opportunity with the additional funding opportunities coming up to discuss it with the school board. And I was under the impression that the letter was going to be discussed, sending a letter. I wasn't aware that a letter had already been prepared, so I apologize that you weren't aware of that.
Okay. And I would imagine this has the full support of the Board of Supervisors, is that right?
Yes.
You've had an opportunity to publicly discuss it, I guess?
Yes, and
Okay.
We,
I don't know why the letter wasn't sent out in advance. I kind of thought it had been. I thought I just
Okay.
had not paid attention. But having said that, I think it's to everybody's benefit that we do this. There's no downside
Yeah.
to this. Everything is 100% positive to the upside.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Having sit with Mr. Williams down on TPO, and Larry's been there before, having something that comes from both boards will send a very good message, and a loud message, that as we're competing against others for these funds. I think having y'all's, chairman sign it and input is very instrumental in possibly pushing this thing forward to maybe move that .02 tenths in front of somebody else. Not that we want to take somebody's money, but I read the other projects as Mr. Williams and I did, and I thought ours is probably a little more neat than theirs, but.
Mr.
Madam
Sherwood.
Chairman, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
This is not a new issue. This has been an issue since the high school opened. And I'm pretty sure there've been some accidents there, not anything that was terrible, but there have been accidents with students involved in that intersection. And it's been going on for so long that when my sons were in high school, I used to tell them never to sit in that turning lane, to go down and even make the U-turn or turn left at the Patterson Road second near Frisbee's. Because it is a tragedy waiting to happen. And if they don't change it, unfortunately, something is gonna happen. It is a terrible, terrible place.
Actually, Ms. Ayers, the sheriff sitting over in the corner will tell you that it's against the law, actually, to sit there and wait for the turn lane to clear. VDOT did lengthen it, but it was, it's as far as they could, but it's actually against the law to sit in that turn lane and wait. Is it not?
Sitting in the travel lane.
Travel lane, exactly, to get into the turn lane.
Okay, well, I told my boys right
You did
then.
right then.
Mr. Tucker.
Chairman.
Mr.
A
Tucker.
comment and then a question. I'd like to see an extra sentence added to this referencing the 500 dump trucks going to the Cumberland landfill on a day-to-day basis, which is going to take a situation which is already rife and ready and make it even worse. And the second is a question: would it help at all if we asked the sheriff to also sign this letter, so we have 3 entities in the county saying this is important, assuming that you will sign?
Long
Thank you.
as long as he carried his gun with him.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kunkel.
as long as we're addressing that intersection, I think a good percentage of the traffic coming up Dorset Road tends to go down New Dorset Road to make a right turn to avoid the line at Dorset and 60. I'd say a third of them in the morning then cross both lanes to get into that left turn lane. The traffic that's waiting on New Dorset to turn right, they want to go all the way across both lanes and get into that left turn lane. If you can picture the intersection of the Powhite and Route 60, there's a left turn lane going into Bob Evans, and there's a military facility. They have a barrier strip so that you cannot come off of the on-ramp from Powhite North and get all the way across 60 and get into that left turn lane. I think it would be safer if we had a similar barrier. If you go to 2 left turn lanes, have a barrier strip so that people on New Dorset have to just turn right and go down Route 60. But in doing that, you better improve the intersection at Dorset and Route 60, because now everybody who wants to go to the school is going to have to go up to that corner. But I think it would improve safety to prevent people from trying to cross both lanes to get into the left turn lane to go to the high school.
Mr. Chardon, could you flesh out for us a bit the significant public outreach you referenced in the letter? So the school board can understand that there has been opportunity for citizen input.
Yeah, so we put together an open house, which was advertised, I believe it was in the paper, of course, social media, all of that at the library. So that was a couple-hour-long open house that had exhibits for a number of projects. I think we were originally considering something like 7 projects to whittle those down to our top 4. So we had boards with information on crash data, number of vehicles that travel them each day, showing how the intersections might be changed. So that was well attended. I want to say it may have been maybe up to like 50 people or so, which in my experience for a smart scale type of outreach is good. A lot of people are interested in that. All of the other projects received varying degrees. Some there was support, also some comments, that no, don't do that one, or that one's not a good idea. So this one stood out as having only positive support. People all seemed to think that something needs to be addressed there, and it was a good idea. The board discussed these at several workshop meetings, which were public and had public comment periods, and then ultimately which 4 projects got applied for was decided at the board. I believe one of your regular meetings, again, public with a public comment period. So, we engaged the public early. I believe VDOT staff early on had commented that we were the first locality they knew of to begin that process and begin the outreach. So I think we did a good job trying to engage the public and get their input.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gold.
I think I can speak with some level of confidence that the school board is in favor of this. It's just procedural at this point. We
Right.
need to add it to our agenda next Tuesday night, if that's soon enough for the Board of Supervisors. I mean, we've got a workshop next Tuesday night, isn't that correct, Dr. Jones?
Yeah, we have one on the 26th.
Yeah,
That's exactly
so we
correct.
could certainly put it on our agenda for then. I tried to give input into the Smart Scale project, and Jude's Ferry was my number 1 on both ends, and that Mr. Williams and I think. But anyway, so I would, I think we can, from the school board side, say we are in support of it, and we can put it
Yeah,
on our agenda for next
I
week.
think we're in agreement. I don't see anybody commenting with any concern about what we've got, and I think the procedural concern is all that I have. Will the 26th, if we act on this on the 26th, address the needs of the county to submit the letter in a timely fashion? Is that going to be okay?
Yeah, my thought was just having this go ahead of us speaking at the public hearing, so when we show up at the public hearing, that's not the first time they've heard from us, but they've had the chance to receive this and digest it.
When
So,
is that again?
those, I don't have a date yet, I don't think they've set them, but it would be in April that the public
Okay,
hearings
so
are.
the
So if we
26th
get
would
something
work
out
for
in
your
March.
timeline?
Yeah.
In the past, the school board has taken a position that we don't, we try not to vote on an item that has only been put in front of us for public discussion on the same night, to give an opportunity for the public to comment. This is not really an educational policy per se, but I mean, it's something that we really have not talked about as a board. So unless there are any concerns, what I'd ask is Dr. Jones to put this on our agenda for the 26th with the intention that we would vote on it and be able to promptly return it to the county. So if you could provide us, if we could ask if the county staff would provide us with whatever the final version of the document looks like, and we can get it posted to our agenda, and then take action on it on the 26th. Any school board members have any concern with that approach? Is that Yeah, we'll need the letter to sign that evening if that's possible for you. Okay?
We appreciate being off.
Yeah, we do.
given the
I
opportunity.
sincerely appreciate the opportunity to work with the county for that. It's important for the high school there in that area. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I got one last thing. I guess question, Brett, maybe David, you can answer this. The TPO is under the PDC, and there's a Virginia PDC statewide organization. And I'm wondering, since we're trying to add a little gravitas, I'm thinking we probably have not been in touch with them. Would they be of any help? And is there a Virginia TPO, or they probably call it an MPO? Do you know if there's a statewide?
No, what you're talking about is the Virginia Associations of Planning Districts. You know,
Right.
that's the state organization. In this case, because we're competing against other jurisdictions, I don't think you would get any support.
I think they would probably stay out of it at that level, probably. Would be my gut.
I would think it would bear any fruit.
So their pamphlet about "We're here to help" is probably not exactly, yeah, okay. Second one, should we have anybody from the, like, parent-teacher group either weigh in on this or attend a meeting, even as a silent sort of witness there in the room? Have you thought about that? I'm sure there's a lot of parents and teachers that are extremely concerned about this issue, and maybe they should be represented. Thanks.
I think that's something that Dr. Jones could share with the PTOs, the parent-teacher organizations, and our staff. I think we could take care of that, or he could take care of that, rather.
Yeah.
All right. That'll move us into the school board budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you could pull up the presentation, please, Ms. Wilson. We've got several documents for both boards to consider. The school board's obviously seen all these documents a few times already, but I wanted to run through our budget presentation for you, and then we can go through some of the other documents at the board's pleasure. This is our budget presentation that we've now given 4 different times, I believe, in various iterations throughout the budget process. We always start by talking about what our accomplishments are. Last year was an extremely successful and busy year. We enacted and created a new strategic plan that the school board approved in September of this year. We did elementary realignment, moving students to help balance the capacity at our 3 elementary schools to hopefully promote long-term capacity at all 3 schools. Of course, as everybody knows, Powhatan Middle School's open and is continuing to function well, as well as the joint transportation facility. We rolled out a Chromebook 1-to-1 in grades 6 through 8 at the middle school and continue to receive full accreditation in all of our schools. As part of our strategic plan and really tying everything we do into our strategic plan, we've kind of listed some of our accomplishments and goals underneath each of the 4 goals in our strategic plan. The first one is about personalized learning, creating pathways for each student to achieve academic success. I won't go through all of these, but we have new courses that we've offered. Probably most significant is the new engineering courses at the high school, as well as the Project Lead the Way, which is a career and technical education exploration at the middle school. We continue to implement our Virginia tiered systems of support, which provides support for individual students that may be struggling academically, socially, or behaviorally. And continue to really drill down to making sure every student's successful. And then we've got some other accomplishments in the area of arts, athletics, and then some extracurricular accomplishments that our students and staff have enjoyed. Our next goal is about leveraging talent. As the Board of Supervisors, I'm sure, is aware, it's a very important goal. We want to attract and retain our high-quality staff to help drive that personalized teaching and learning. There's several things that have been listed here. We are particularly thankful with the partnership that we have with the YMCA to provide free childcare for our middle school teachers before school. We've actually picked up 4 or 5 students as a result of that and have kept at least 3 high-performing teachers from leaving the division because of that benefit. So we're thankful for the YMCA for working with us on that. And there's PD here. Math coaches that we've added, support for new teachers to help retain them during the difficult first years, and then some other awards that we've won throughout the year by various staff members. Next goal is about investing in community, and that's really about engaging the community to facilitate meaningful learning experiences. Big part of what we're starting to do and a big shift in education is making sure that our students, beginning in middle school, but certainly in high school, get as many work-life experiences as they can. That's not easy. We have about 350 seniors, not to mention our junior class, so providing them the opportunity for work-life experiences really requires a commitment of the community to help us with those opportunities. So we've started that process. It's always existed, but we've really started ramping it up with job shadowing, externships, internships. We've added a firefighting class at the high school, which has gone extremely well, and are doing a lot more with service learning and giving back to the community for our students, which is another aspect of this goal. And then finally, culture and well-being, fostering a safe and positive learning environment to promote the emotional development of our students. When we did this strategic plan process, we had a committee of about 42 community members, staff members. Mr. Walters and Ms. Emil served on that committee. But what we heard loud and clear from our stakeholders and our community was that really the emotional development of students, social emotional learning, their wellness as it relates to emotional and physical health was very, very important. So we've got some partnerships, one with Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation, which really is around mental health and mental wellness. Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities is a statewide organization that works on equity. And then the Powhatan Free Clinic, we've just started a new partnership as a result of the good work of Connie Moslow and her staff, where we're actually providing counseling services for our high school students at Powhatan High School from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. And that is free to the school system. It's grant funded through the free clinic, but we're really starting to see some benefit of that for students that need that access to professional counselors. They're now being able to get it right at school instead of having to go somewhere else. So it's been a very nice new program. And then there's some other programs listed there, more work that we're doing with school counseling and such.
Dr. Jones, do
Yes.
you want questions while we go?
Sure.
Is it- Okay, I have a question. Do you have either a curriculum or mentors or buddies or whatever in the area of social emotional health in the schools? What do we have there?
We have a lot. We do have a mentoring program at the elementary middle school program called Lunch Buddies.
Lunch Buddies,
Yep.
right.
And then at the high school, we also have a mentoring program where we have mentors come in and meet with students that we've identified as needing a positive role model. They come in and eat lunch with the students, also spend time with them before or after school, so we do have some mentoring programs. We've also begun exploring some social emotional curriculum and introducing that into our regular curriculum, K-12.
And would that have basically coping skills?
Yeah,
in
it would be
Is that-
coping skills, dealing with stress,
Okay.
wellness, mindfulness, all of those buzzwords that you hear are really a focus for our teachers. They've done a lot of professional development in that area. That's something they've embraced because they see the need for it for our students. So we're really starting to see a lot of, getting away from strictly academic side to more of that whole child approach that was more evident before standardized testing took hold.
And the reason I ask partially is because without coping skills, they turn oftentimes to substance abuse
Absolutely.
to cope. So we don't want that. So thank you.
Yep.
Excuse me, Dr. Jones, I guess the second step program would be good to mention because that's starting at the middle school, right?
Right, so the Second Step program is a program at the middle school that's designed around our PBIS program for students to have additional opportunities for learning as opposed to getting put out of school, and it also provides some counseling services to them as well. Okay. Next item is, this is a slide that we show every year just to keep track of average class size. Our class sizes continue to be very manageable and good throughout our K-12. There's some fluctuation from year to year at grade levels and at schools, but in general, as you look at the bottom right, our division-wide numbers remain pretty similar across the board. This slide talks about enrollment. Our enrollment's been pretty flat over the last 6 years, 7 years. You can go back to 2012, 2013, we were at 4326 students. We're next year projected to be 4298, so we're not seeing a lot of variance from year to year. There's, going up or down a couple dozen students a year, but in general have not seen, after the dip that we experienced during the Great Recession, we've seen a very flat enrollment structure from in our schools.
Dr. Jones,
Yes.
in the capital improvement plan that we looked at the other night, I think it was year 2025, guys, y'all weigh in. But I think that was the year where we looked at an addition on the high school for additional students.
Right.
Are we still tracking that we're going to need to do that?
At this point, we put it in the CIP just to get it out there, that there may
Right.
be a possibility. If our numbers stay like this are, we're under capacity, we wouldn't need that. But, we don't know what's going to happen with enrollment over the next 5 to 10 years. So right now, we're at about 90%, 92% capacity at the high school.
Okay.
And we would be able to accommodate more students than that before we would have to do that addition.
The reason I asked the question, if it was something that wasn't reflected in the number of students across fiscal years that you knew was coming.
Right.
And if it was, we would be aware of that.
Correct. And we
But
don't.
we don't know of anything that's going to,
And we don't either. Really, we just put that into the plan just as a in case and being prepared in case we did see a spike in the years before 2025.
so how many more students, if you're at 90 or 92% capacity, how many more students would put you at capacity?
And capacity, Mr. Williams, is always a funny number because it's functional capacity. It's how
Right.
you use the space that you
Right.
have. So that would be dependent on how we determined to use our space.
Absolutely.
So the official capacity of the school is 1,500 students. We're at about 1,435 right now. So we could accommodate some more students than that. But if we needed to go higher than that, the school could certainly accommodate it.
And again, going back to functional capacity, it depends on classrooms.
How you're using classrooms, where your teachers are stationed, whether they're
Right.
moving between classrooms, those types of things.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Questions on that? The next slide is comparison of per pupil costs. This is a slide where we track our Powhatan's per pupil costs with the state. You can see that there's been that pretty similar variance between the state average and what it costs in Powhatan to educate students. It's about $1,400 different. That's the widest gap that we've seen in the last 5 years, or 6 years, excuse me. And we haven't gotten 2018 numbers yet. We'll get those in April, Mr. John, so we can add that. We also, at the request of the school board, added kind of a local comparison down at the bottom, which we haven't shown in the past. And we've just compared ourselves to our local rural neighbors in terms of what it costs in Goochland, Cumberland, Buckingham, and Amelia to educate students versus what it costs in Powhatan.
Thank you for providing that.
Sure, absolutely.
I have a question about that, Dr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
I look at this graph and I see that that's a significant increase in 5 years. To me, what would you say is the major reason that it costs so much between 2012 and 2017? Why so much more to teach a pupil?
Well, I think a lot of it is, it's almost 100% driven by personnel costs, by health insurance, benefits, and employee salaries. You also have the VRS increase in there that was a significant increase to get caught up in the VRS, so that's a large chunk of it as well.
So, because I think the average citizen would probably want to know, okay, so our enrollment has been flat, and yet we need more and more money every year. So it's a logical why. So that's a good answer. So it's not really materials or transportation per se, or we're getting hit in the, basically, I'm assuming in the health benefits
Yeah, we
department pretty hard.
we've got some charts that we could send the Board of Supervisors if you're interested in, that we tracked what line items are our line items, which is everything else other than personnel costs, and kind of our fixed costs like electricity and transportation have actually decreased over the last 7 or 8 years. So we're actually spending less on materials, instructional materials, those types of things than we did
Wow, great.
in order to put more money towards these personnel costs.
I don't think I need that. I know I've looked ahead in here and I've seen you've got pie charts and that kind of thing, so, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to comment on that.
Mr. Conklin.
If you divide that out over the 5 years, you're basically at 2% a year, which pretty much keeps pace with, the official inflation numbers. But since most of our expenses are payroll, benefits, and salaries, and our cost studies of the salaries of, our staff versus the state average shows we're kind of keeping pace with them. We're not trying to overcompensate our employees. We're trying not to undercompensate them, but I think it's in line with just the cost of living increases you see.
Thank
All
you.
right, Dr. Jones.
Yep. The next slide kind of speaks to Mr. Nordvik's question. This is a pie graph that we've shown for the last several years that kind of breaks down. You can see almost 84% of our budget is personnel or payroll and benefits. That's not unusual to many public organizations, but it has increased over time. And you can see you've got the fixed plan operations, fixed instruction and vehicle, and then what we kind of lump together, variable costs. Those are the materials, supplies, those types of things are continuing to go down. It was 5.37 in 2017-18, and it's down to 4.43% of our budget in 18-19. And we've actually reduced those line items again this year in the final version of our budget. This is a summary. There's a more detailed chart attached to the boilerplate for the board's review, but this just kind of talks about a summary of revenues and expenditures. Our proposed revenue changes, we've got the state increase, and that's the final state increase from the past budget. The county administrators proposed local increase, and then federal and local sources. And then we've got the proposed expenditure changes. The bulk of those changes, almost 75% or more than 75% of them, is the 3% salary increase that the board is proposing for its employees. We have $193,000 in positions and stipends, and then the 1.8% health care increase that we're very thankful is 1.8%. And then we've got the reduction in line item requests of just over $11,000 to balance our budget.
Dr. Jones, if you don't mind, would you
Mr.
elaborate on the 3% raise and our ability to get the state money with that, and how much it's actually costing us to do that 3% raise?
Sure. We've got, as both boards are aware, the governor, and there's money in the budget for a 5% raise for employees. We gave a 2% across-the-board raise last year, so we would need to give the 3% raise in order to access that money. The state share of that money is about a little more than $650,000. So it pays for 2/3 of the raise, and it's the bulk of our state increase that we're getting in increased dollars this year. But it's still not enough to cover the whole increase, because that is only based on minimum SOQ funding, and Powhatan, as well as every school district in the Commonwealth, goes above the minimum SOQ, and normally there's 30 to 40% of additional staff that a school division has in addition to those minimums that have been not adjusted for a number of years. I've got the next slide is kind of our journey. We started, and we always start with the governor's proposed budget, and that's our first draft of the budget. We know that the governor's budget used some numbers from the tax windfall that we received as a result of the federal taxing decrease, and more of that money was put into K-12 education. And when the General Assembly passed the budget, we received about $245,000 less, or more than almost $246,000 less than what was in the governor's proposed budget. So throughout the process, as we kept getting those numbers, we would make reductions. These were the 5 major reductions. We were scheduled to replace 2 special ed vans. That was deleted from transportation. Our maintenance and repair budget was reduced by over $68,000. Transportation, for some specialized tools in our joint transportation facility, had a $5,000 decrease. We had some equipment replacement in O&M to the tune of $45,000, And then we're delaying some technology budgets for equipment replacement in our schools, just over 60,000. And that's what allowed us to balance the budget over the last month or so, as we kept getting numbers from first the House version, then the Senate version, and then the passed version. So we've already made some pretty severe cuts to our budget as a result to try to get balance based on where we started with the governor's proposed budget. And then here's...
I have another question.
Sure.
I'm a curious guy tonight. Maintenance and repair budget and transportation. So we have a new joint transportation
Correct.
facility. Do you think this number would have been even worse if we had the old garage going? Like, have you actually felt the savings from that joint transportation facility yet, or is it too early to say?
It's too early for us to quantify. We really haven't looked at that. I know that our employees are being more efficient because of the facility they have. They're able to accomplish a lot more work, and I think that we're certainly saving money as a result of that, but we really haven't pulled that. This maintenance and repair is really maintenance and repair for our buildings.
Right, okay.
And the reason we felt comfortable cutting that number is because of the energy performance contracting that we're doing with Train. A lot of the things that we would be replacing, lights, fixtures, those types of things, are part of that contract. So we're already doing that to increase our energy efficiency, hopefully save money over time, and it's allowing us not to have to keep that money in the maintenance and repair budget.
Yeah, it was the transportation word that
Yes.
kind of triggered that question
Yep.
for me too. But
Dr. Jones, I was just having a sidebar with Rick over here. So you won't really be seeing the energy savings until all the work has been done?
Correct. They've replaced some lights already throughout our building, so that we'll start seeing some of that, but the total savings is once they're finished, the projects.
The reason I was asking, we had talked about whether we do this on the front end or the back end of the budgets, it doesn't make any difference, I don't think, to the board. But when would we actually be seeing those savings kick in such that it would be equal or exceed what we're paying in debt service?
That's a question I'd have to do some research on and get back to you,
Okay.
Mr. Williams.
Okay.
Happy to do that for you.
Okay.
Did you get that, Mr. Johns? Good. And then finally is our budget priorities. This is kind of the number one goal of the school board is the salary increase for all employees. We've tied them again to our strategic plan goals. We've also increased the funding in our budget at the request of the Sheriff's Department to provide a pool of money that will help provide some part-time SRO coverage in our elementary schools. And Sheriff Nunnally and I have talked about that several times and are looking forward to during peak times, arrival, lunches, dismissal, having a greater SRO presence at the elementary school, I think would help assure our community that while our schools are extremely safe, having that professional coverage there would make people feel even better. We've got a request from staff. The number one request for staff is to increase touch access technology in primary grades. This is our K-2 students, so while we're using Chromebooks with keyboards in the other grades, those younger kids really need the touch like an iPad or a tablet. So we're going to increase access there for the younger students. We see an increase in our preschool program. So we are looking to add an FTE to open another preschool classroom at Flat Rock Elementary. We're also working with the city of Richmond to hopefully restore the Head Start classroom that the Richmond City, who administers our Head Start grant, cut last year, and we're still waiting to hear what the final outcome of that is. So hopefully we'll be adding 2 preschool classrooms. We added an FTE to provide customer service in our finance and operations department. We've got a lot of new state and federal reporting categories as a result of some new federal guidelines with the new education ARA legislation. We've increased stipends. This is really for JV lacrosse, both boys and girls, which the school board has approved to add next school year, so that's what those stipends are. And then finally, we have an FTE that we're added that is really going to be focused on building up that social emotional learning and providing additional behavior supports for both for our students primarily, but also to assist families and teachers.
Dr. Jones, before you move on,
Yes.
So goal number 2, leveraging talent, your biggest piece.
Yep.
Does that include the 23% increase in the fringe benefit package? Is that where that shows up?
The 23%.
Looking back at your pie chart?
I think that was the percentage of the,
That's percentage of
percentage of the
budget.
total spending, not an increase.
It's on page 10, Mr. Tucker?
Yeah,
Total
hold on.
percentage of our budget.
That's the percentage of the total budget.
Is that what you mean, payroll benefits?
But as far as its connection to your strategic plan, it's in goal number 2.
Correct. It's attracting and retaining the best staff that we can by providing a 3% raise to our employees, which every school division in Region 1 is proposing to do this year. That would allow us to stay competitive in attracting
Right.
talent, but also retaining it.
Okay, so that increase in the fringe benefit package is in goal number 2.
Correct, absolutely.
Okay, that's my
Yep.
question.
The fringe benefit package, that increase is mainly the healthcare increase, as well as a slight VRS increase.
Right.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions I can answer? I think that's the end of the presentation. We have our vision statement on here that's part of our new strategic plan, Empowering Today to Innovate Tomorrow. Ms. Wilson, if you can pull up the boilerplate real quick, just I'll point out that if the board's interested in doing a deeper dive, we do have our entire budget line item by line item is on here. I think it's been sent to you, as well as a revenue expenditure summary, and the category that the school board will be approving on March 26th, hopefully, and that we'll be sending to the Board of Supervisors for approval after that. And that's all that I have. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the board may have.
Questions or comments for Dr. Jones?
Dr. Jones, I thank you for the detail. One of the things that had been said many years ago was we were not providing materials and supplies to the schools. We do have that in a breakout. It's kind of consistent across the board. I think it's important to make sure that we communicate that when you have a tight budget, you're not reducing the materials and supplies. The teachers have to go out and buy them themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for providing the detail.
Sure. Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Dr. Jones.
All right. So this will take us to number C, letter C. Any board discussion on this budget? Anything else? No?
Just thank you. It's always nice when you see a budget proposed that doesn't require a tax increase. So again, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
That'll take us to our final public comment period. If anybody would like to make any comments, please come down to the front, state your name and address, and sign in for us. All right, there are none then. We'll close that comment period. Board comments? Nope. School board comments? Board of Supervisor comments?
I do have one comment, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I want to read this. After much thought, discussion with my family, and prayers, I've decided not to run for re-election for District 4 Board of Supervisor. I've spent almost 20 years of community service as District 4 Planning Commission representative and Board of Supervisor. I've always worked hard to listen to all citizens, seek advice from my staff, and use all resources available to me to ensure I make the best decision for Powhatan County and its citizens. Balancing all county priorities is very difficult. In today's political environment, it seems to be the norm to publicly attack people, be it in a public venue or on social media. We do not have to be a community that chooses to attack each other when we have opposing views. I challenge us to do better. I would like to thank all the citizens who I've served over the last 20 years. It's been a pleasure serving you. In closing, I want to ensure you that I will do my job as a District 4 Board of Supervisors to the best of my ability and will vote on all issues and subject matter until December 31st, 2019, in a way that is best for Powhatan County and its citizens. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty, thank you. And that brings us to the end of this meeting, and we will,
Before we do, I would just like to make one comment. I would like to, on behalf of the school board, thank the Board of Supervisors for for this opportunity for the joint meeting. We appreciate the opportunity to sit with you and to go through the budget, to have the opportunity to answer questions and have discussion about it. And I think that the spirit of collaboration between the two boards is critical to the success of the county. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well
We
said.
agree, we agree.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this might be a record, and we're adjourned.
Do we have a motion from the school board to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. School board is adjourned.